Call the meeting to order. And just a reminder, we are recording for broadcast on the local community cable channel. First order of business is vote to approve the meeting minutes from October 8th. Those were previously distributed.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you again, Debbie, for taking those. Appreciate that. And we'll quickly turn it over to Mitch.
All right, good to see everybody again. I think we're going to kick it off with a project budget update. We do have a couple of new invoices since the last time I discussed this. We have PMA invoice number 5 and HFH invoice 4155. So the HFH invoice is for $66,000 and the PMA invoice is for roughly $10,000. Both falling within our cash flow that we're tracking, and our budget is on target, so we don't see any red flags with this. I just want to present to everybody and do a formal update and vote on if we need to.
Yep. Kathy, any input from your end on this?
No, we're right on track, and Scott, the town treasurer, is aware of the spend schedule for when to draw money down. So we're good.
Okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion to accept the financial update.
Motion to accept financial update.
Second.
Any discussion, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Just a quick reminder, MSBA overview, we are in the feasibility portion, still very early on in the process. We are working towards our preliminary design program submittal, which will be in December. So all these meetings that we're having from now until December will fall into that submittal. And you'll see as we go through tonight, we're going to have a couple of votes to help us whittle down a few things and get that package into the MSBA in December on time. No.
All right. Starting as you're going to get used to, starting with the work plan, we've had, today is the 4th meeting, so we're in meeting number 4. Today we're going to talk about the educational program, update you on the space summary. The update on the space summary is that we're working on it and we're going to bring it next time. We're going to look at enrollment alternatives and ask for a vote on reductions. We're going to look at site selection reduction, some of that stuff that you saw last time with all the charts full of red. But we've got a couple of things to show on that and ask for a vote. A little more on site development and the beginning of the cost discussion. Additionally, we've talked a couple of times about PDP meeting 6, which is still scheduled for November 26th. Mark, do you want to open up a conversation about that now, about whether that's going to fly? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, we had alluded to the fact of, obviously that's Thanksgiving week, it's also parent-teacher conference night, and I just want to make sure that if we do need to have that meeting, it sounds like we do to maintain our schedule, that people may have travel plans for Thanksgiving. Mark had alluded that there may not be an issue with the parent-teacher conference.
No, I think we'll be fine. We may have to relocate someone that used this space, but that's easy.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we can guarantee a quorum for that night. And I think we had head nodding last time that was still okay to run that meeting. So I think I'd rather stick to our, if we can get a quorum, I'd rather stick to our regular schedule than try to juggle different dates that people are now used to, the 2nd and 4th. So we would be meeting on November 12th, and then November 26th, and then December 10th to fill out the deadlines for the PDP. All right.
Okay. This is the project goals and concerns. It's a little compact, but I just want to, we're going to bring this back on a regular basis. This is all the same stuff that you saw last time and the time, and was reported from you the meeting before. I'm really holding it here so that we can refer to it as an important set of goals as we move forward. So we've been reporting back on the educational visioning that we've been doing with our ed visioning consultant and planning consultant. And we met, so sort of the last time we met with him was October 11th, and some key ideas came out of that about how the building itself will be organized. The biggest one is probably the idea that the building will be organized into a lower school, potentially with pre-K through second, and then an upper school with third through sixth. Or if it's a smaller enrollment, some splitting, pre-K through 1, 2 through 4, or we'll figure something out with, depending on the other enrollments. Although we're hoping today to bring it down to those two. So then beyond that, the learning communities, sort of the idea that this is your group of learners will be organized by grade so that a kid belongs to a classroom, but then also to what's often referred to as a learning community, and that's by grade. And that teacher planning and workrooms will also be per grade, embedded into with those classrooms. Additionally, were some ideas about spaces and adjacencies. Small group rooms, we talked about this at the last meeting a little bit, but that small group rooms will be located between classrooms, so that every 2 classrooms will have a single small group room shared. This idea of extending the learning into the commons, bringing openings and visual connection from the classroom into a space outside of the classroom where students can go and learning will continue. An idea about the sensory experience, that the sensory experience isn't limited to the classrooms, that it is throughout the school, and that kind of brings that learning everywhere within the school. That there's things that for kids to engage with, sit on, look through, play with, and learn from everywhere within the school. An idea about varied dining options. These include big cafeterias like we're used to, outdoor spaces like you see here, smaller spaces, quieter spaces, that there are places all that are observable, right, and can be controlled, but that give students opportunities to make choices along the way about where they eat. The cafeteria can be a very stressful place, especially for kids that need something quieter on a smaller scale. That STEM will be both a destination, a classroom dedicated to STEM learning, but also embedded within the classrooms, but also embedded into those learning commons throughout that are located within the learning communities, again, which are the grades. And that the media center, we've talked a lot about this, but the media center will be both a destination, a library that feels like what we know of as a library, but that it will also have satellite spaces, potentially within those learning commons, like you're seeing on the right-hand side here, but satellites within the learning community, so that each grade, or maybe each school, the lower school and upper school, will have these satellite libraries within them. So smaller libraries fed by the bigger whole.
There we go there. Does anyone here want to chime into that? You've been, I'm looking at the four of you recording it. Anything else you want to add, or any other thoughts that on what we can talk
No, I
about?
think that's a pretty good summary of everything the conversations we've had.
Okay. Yeah, that last one about the libraries, I loved what was coming out, which is like, get a book in their hand. We have to bring it to them, get a book in their hand, kind of an idea around those satellite spaces. So it was interesting.
So I have one question. So how does satellite spaces for a library, media center, whatever you want to call it, as well as those shared common spaces between 2 classrooms, how does that figure into the total allotted square footage, does it figure against the classroom square footage? Or does it figure against the total square footage based on the total population for the building?
We have to find that square footage somewhere. So the idea will be that we'll pull a little bit out of each classroom to feed it. We'll pull a little bit out of the library to feed it. And there's more to figure out. But the idea is that we'll be using the guidelines within the MSBA square footages and finding spaces and space that we can pull out.
The point is we have to allocate for it somehow within the total square footage allowed.
Correct.
Right,
Yeah.
that's ultimately the aim, and we have been working with Mark and the principals and leadership, working through what's referred to as the space summaries, the MSBA document. And, you know, when you're looking at that document, you can kind of see on the right-hand side what they're allocating, what they think for the number of classrooms, et cetera, et cetera. And so we're working, you know, based off of all the educational visioning we've done to sort of craft a program that makes sense for this community and this school, but also sort of, in terms of square footage, stays in line with MSBA's goals. Because really, we want to get every possible square foot reimbursed by the, you know, the percentage value that you will have for reimbursement. So that's been our aim. We've had 2 meetings. We've got another one next week, and likely more to follow after that, but we're making a lot of headway. So we don't have anything to directly report except for the fact that we are working through that space summary.
We'll be bringing that back, probably at the next meeting, but as we get closer to completing.
I had a similar question along that line, when you were talking about those little shared rooms for each 2 classrooms. Does that space come out of each 2 classrooms?
So the MSBA guideline allows for a certain number of those. The way that it's being planned now is for there to be more of them than the MSBA allows. And that would also be allocating space from the classroom.
And those are only accessible from those 2 classrooms, or are they accessible?
It could be from the hallway too. It just depends on what the ultimate design is. The other component of this is the special education component. And every community is very unique in terms of their special education needs. And MSBA doesn't dictate that. It will get reviewed by DESE, which is the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed, and they will review the entire, especially focusing on the special education program. And so that piece is a little looser. I mean, there is a bucket there, but I've never worked on a project that would stay within that number. But it gets reimbursed by MSBA because the state agency is never going to say, no, you cannot have special education. It's never going to happen. So it's working within our parameters, but also achieving the goals that are needed for the education here.
We're also really intentional when we're creating these spaces and looking at spaces, make sure they can be used throughout the day and by different populations. So we don't want to build something that's going to be not used all the time. So there's a lot of thought that goes into where these spaces can go, who's going to be using them, and how often they'll be used.
It's one of the fun parts, but I don't know if everyone else agrees, but I enjoy it. It's really the groundwork for the school, so. Okay?
Okay, any other questions?
So, yeah, I have a question. So that's like 17 group spaces if we're talking, 7 grades, kindergarten through 6th grade. That's 35 classes. So half of that is roughly 17 shared between. So that's 17 additional spaces that we're looking at before we include preschool. I just want to I'm just trying to think of it holistically.
It's right now, MSBA actually allows for 40 general classrooms and 8 kindergarten classrooms. So that's what's on the MSBA spreadsheet.
Right, but I'm asking
And so
if the carved out spaces, so if you're saying 40, so we're talking 20,
So it'd be 24.
24 extra carved out places.
They're not necessarily extra, they're incorporated in the program. and-
Right, they're separate spaces.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that more staff to staff them? Just curious.
That would be for
Yeah.
like a related service. So
Right.
Speech could pull a student from the
Right.
classroom, they work in that space
No, I
instead of
get it.
traveling all the way to the other side of the building. Volunteers can work with students.
It just
in
seems
there.
like a lot to me. I'm gonna say it's true that.
Well, I could say just from a teacher point of view, I would give up space in my classroom to have a breakout space like that, so that
No,
my kids
I
can-
agree, there are some obviously that are necessary, I was just curious.
And the fact that we'll be able to open our classrooms out into the common spaces as well. So we would give up that space in the actual classroom, knowing that we now have this common space we can go to, we have a breakout room we can go to. So it would really just be an extension, it would be a little bit from each classroom, just to give us a separate space.
From an inclusivity standpoint, it facilitates creating a community where everybody is working together. So if you have students who have to get pulled out for related services or Title I, now they're getting pulled out into this space with their peers. It's
Like an extension.
when we worked with our visioning groups, it was almost unanimous that people who toured them and talked about what's important to us wanted those spaces.
And they weren't that big, they were like 125
Yeah.
square
Yeah.
feet.
From each classroom. So
Yeah.
they're about right now they're 250 on the program each.
Like a table,
And-
maybe
and they can
6
be-
chairs.
They can be, you know, they range, they can be smaller.
Yeah, and again, we're still working through this.
No, I'm just
But it's very
trying
good
to put
questions
the
and-
numbers in perspective.
It sounds like a lot.
It does sound like a lot, 24 spaces.
Not when you're
but-
thinking about the size of the school that we're
Right.
possibly talking about too.
Right?
Right? We're gonna close the So this next topic is around the enrollment options that we have before us, that we've been talking about since day one. This is what's been approved for us to vet and look at from the MSBA and review all. And so, you know, enrollment that just strictly replaces Roselle, grades 1 through 3, and enrollment of pre-K to 4, 6 of your grades, and enrollment of 1st to 6th, which is another 6 of your grades, or all the grades we're talking about, pre-K through 6, which is 8 grades. And so, sort of had a lot of conversations and have a good feeling that people, you know, think some of these are not really worth the effort, like just replacing, for instance, Roselle. So I'd like to just read this and sort of get your sense if these statements are true. The aim of this project is to improve as much of the educational environment as we can. The aim is to resolve as much of the overcrowding and facility conditions as we can. And another aim is to minimize future school projects which would likely occur without state funding. Does that resonate? Maybe I'm missing something, but I'm leading a little bit, but trying to cull all the things that we've heard from you all and trying to get it in one place so we can think about this. So previously we had done pros and cons related to the space programs related to sites. Forget about the sites for a moment. We're going to talk about those later. This is strictly a conversation about these enrollment alternatives and what we see as pros and cons. So in the 1st through 3, you are improving the environment, the overcrowding, and an outdated one facility for 3 of your grades. But it doesn't maximize state funding. It will leave your pre-K, K, your 4th, 5th, and 6th grades in your current configurations. They will not be touched. The environment will not be touched. The overcrowding will persist. And ultimately will lead to future projects down the road. We don't know when, but down the road. And I flagged this the last time, in the mix of things, there is a difference in cost between a 1 through 6 classroom and a pre-KK classroom. Because the pre-KK classrooms require toilets. Every single one requires an accessible toilet. So there's just not only a cost, a direct cost, but a level of space and complexity to achieve that if you're not building it new. You're trying to retrofit a space to achieve that. So we were looking through 1 through 6. Now we're making improvements to 6 out of your grades, which is great. Again, the educational environment, the overcrowding. We would replace 2 of your buildings, which again would eliminate outdated facilities. Still not quite maximizing funding. Leaves the pre-K and K in the current configuration. And so the not being able to resolve pre-K-K, which is right around the corner here on this site, the question of leaving that for you all in the future brings up where, how would you do it, when would you do it? Because you couldn't actually do it on that site. There isn't room on that portion unless we're talking about, I won't say it, something out front, which we know we would not talk about as a community. So it brings up not only an additional cost than maybe a regular classroom, but a complexity because of the configuration of where Spring is suited. So the next one is including pre-K through 4th grade. Now you also are improving 6 environments, you're improving the overcrowded, you are replacing 2 outdated facilities, so similar. Still not maximizing funding, we understand that, but it leaves your 5th and 6th grade to be resolved. And when I can tell you that when we think about the difference between resolving pre-K down the road, in this community, resolving 5th and 6th grade, it's night and day. Because Howard as a building, when you pull 4th grade out, could be with minimal effort, some cost, but minimal effort, a 5th and 6th grade building. So that's kind of our line between whether the enrollments that we move forward with have the pre-K and K in it or they don't. And then we all know what's going to happen with this one. We've improved all the environments for all 8 grades. The projected enrollments essentially replaced all outdated facilities. Nothing left for the town to do, at least in our collective lifetimes. But the con is going to be, if that is the route that we take, it will be the largest, it will be the most costly. So this is not an argument for going to just one project. We think that a plus at this stage is to reduce from 4 enrollments to 2, keeping the pre-K through 4 and the pre-K through 6, and looking at the different configurations and the possibilities and the sites that we have before us and all of that. Because of, again, back to that first thing, what's your overall aim for this project and how can we achieve that by maximizing this project and this funding mechanism and improving as much of your schools as we can. So, one more slide. People like dollar signs without dollars. As we said, we don't quite have dollars yet, but we have dollar signs. And the difference between the 2 colors is blue is with MSBA, orange is not with MSBA. Okay? So this is just an order of magnitude. I think we've all seen these on ratings in restaurants and things like that, just an order of magnitude. And so, as we said very simply on the trip, we know that the more you build, it will be a more expensive project along the spectrum. We do know that. But with the less you build, the more you will have to do as a community at a later date, a later time, with both escalation of cost, because nothing gets less expensive, we've all learned that, and also some level of complexity, which I tried to highlight about what we see as a complexity of the Spring Street site being left in your hands after this project. And then when you come over here, again, that Spring Street situation is still with you. So when we get to this project, including pre-K and K, Spring Street is no longer, hopefully someday is a lovely ball field, right? I mean, that's sort of the ideal, that you don't have to create proper pre-K, K programs with toilets on a separate project. And then as we talked about in this one, 5 and 6 could be accommodated, a little more elbow room, deal with the, the enrollment, get art back, get music back, have Howard still be a viable building. Would happen here with some future dollars, but not as much. Any questions about this chart? Again, we sort of thought it was kind of a nice way to get at this sense of, as a community, you have a pre-K through 6th challenge, right? We're talking about all of those grades that we're trying to do our best for, and how might we do that? And ultimately, if you choose this, ultimately to achieve, an improvement in all of your grades, you would be down, in this category of where the funds would come from. Hopefully that's clear. I know it's a lot of information, and happy to talk back through any of these or
So I admit, I saw this previously, and it took me a little bit to get the hang of it. Does anybody have questions on what this is trying to, the story this is trying to tell?
Well, the one piece we might not mention, the reason Howard on the first third is a $2 sign as opposed to a $1 sign on the pre-K to 4 is because in a 1 through 3rd scenario, you've still got 4th grade there that you don't really have space for, so that's looking at an addition and a renovation. In a pre-K to 4 scenario, now you've removed a grade from Howard, they've got enough elbow room there, so it's, again, that's just a smaller lift of a renovation, not having to do that big addition to it.
Does anybody not get what's here? Does anybody? Yeah, have any questions?
No, it's just that it does, when you get to the PK through 6, it does sort of make it look like the town's not paying anything the way it's set up.
No, you're absolutely right. It's
So
just
that,
with
I mean,
funding or without funding.
because that goes along with that whole maximizing state funding discussion. Maximizing state funding means maximizing the cost of the town.
Absolutely,
Correct.
absolutely.
And that's not, that doesn't necessarily come across.
It's not reflected.
Right, right, right. Just MSBA reimbursed.
And likewise, you could argue that anything in the orange, we could still go back and apply for another MSBA.
Yeah, it's not a given there'd be no funding like it said in the
Right,
prior
right.
slide.
It's not a given that we would tackle any project in orange on our own,
Yeah.
just without applying again for another grant through MSBA at some point down the road.
But it could be a 15-year window.
That's right.
I'll be there.
We hope.
All right.
Somebody else has to pay for it, right?
Yeah.
So the point of all this is, as Lori indicated, we're trying to narrow down the scope now, so to look at the effort going forward to get us to that point. So,
I don't know, we have a, I think we might have an overview of the front.
Okay, this one.
Yeah.
I mean, we know we have to do the first to third as an exercise anyway. That's a given.
Yeah, I would preface, it's a good point. There's kind of a little bit on two different tracks because MSBA is going to look for numbers and everything, like just spreadsheets of every variable there is under the sun. So we are doing that. This is more the realistic, we're working with you decision-making process, yeah.
I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the bottom line here is to try, except for the first to third, which, the way Lori explained that, we really want to try to, I think, take the first through 6 out of the consideration bucket moving forward as a standalone option. We want to focus on,
And what?
yes, we want to focus on the pre-K through 4
Yep.
and the pre-K through 6.
And we're hoping to get it done.
I mean, unless someone says, maybe, I want to do a 1 through 6, I think that makes sense. I mean, we also are basing this off of the surveys we did with the group that was involved in enrollment, and they were all leaning towards pre-K 4 and pre-K 6. So that was kind of part of the impetus of this, is having that contingent of people seeing the logic of getting pre-KK solved.
So Gary, where would the pre-K through 4th go?
Well, that's a TBD. So, I mean, again, this isn't talking sites yet.
No,
So-
look, I'm following it all,
Right.
but there's 3 components to this. What do we want to do? How much we got to spend? Where's it going to go?
Right.
And I feel like we're trying to make decision A without conversations about B and C, but B and C are going to have impacts on it.
Well, I mean, if you think about it logically, it's going to go where the Howard fields are, because that's the most space, and that's the clearest option.
Unless it's the pre-K to 4.
Unless it's pre-K to 4, then you just demo Roselle and then do it there. So pre-K to 6, you just have to look at what space the town has available, and what the MSBA is trying to do is put all facilities on one campus, relatively close to EMS and fire and everything like that. I mean, that's their goal, is to get close to EMS and put everything on one campus. So the Howard Fields is the most logical spot, even just looking at that. That's the most logical spot for space and everything else like that. And then you look at, you know, based on the needs of gymnasiums and special education, we already know that the MSB is gonna, you know, have some relief for special education inside the building. So that 160,000 could go up to 180,000, just hypothetically, if you want to build bigger special education areas. And then district offices, so I don't know what it is for district offices, but those technically don't have to be in the same building as the school. Like, if it's gonna be like, you know, those buildings are 10,000, so the offices are gonna be 10,000 square feet, and that pushes us over, then that's a thing that we'll have to deal with in the future. So,
you've already made a decision as a committee to eliminate Spring Street as a site. So what we're asking for now is that this next interim step is to let us go back and let the teams go back and look at two of those design options and look at the two sites. And then come back to you very quickly with what are the design options for those two enrollments at the two sites, Howard and Roselle.
And as Lori mentioned, we are still required to submit documents and study on the other options as well, which we'll be doing for cost and site locations. So we're still, even though the 1 to 3 and 1 through 6 might be eliminated, that is still a price option that we're gonna look at to have a cost scenario for the PDP submission in December. But this helps us narrow down the focus for HMFH and the cost moving forward of what enrollment option, and then we can get into the possible sites.
So if you look at the pre-K through 4, are you going to be looking at the Howard property fields, or will you be looking to replace the existing Rose McDonald facility?
Both.
And
and that's just because you have to do that as part of the.
Yeah, you'll see.
Well, I think we need to.
Yes.
I don't think there's gonna be your sites that are glaring, this is the perfect site.
Yeah.
I think everyone realizes that, so it really is gonna be pros and cons on those sites as we get
But
to that.
correct me if I'm wrong, the MSBA approval is to look at replacing Rose McDonald. We're not specifically replacing it on the site. You
Correct.
go in.
No, it could,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, like, we're making a choice to look at it on that site, but that's not a requirement of the MSBA mission.
No, that's right. Well, no, other than, again, because they accepted the statement of interest under Roselle in its current configuration, we have to do an option for that. But beyond that,
We have to look at Roselle, it has to be a base code upgrade option, an add or renovation option, and a new construction option. And it would be on that site, but if it would fit somewhere else on a town-owned property, then that could also be studied.
That's the suffices.
right. Okay, to kind of move us forward, if somebody is willing, what I'd like to hear is a motion moving forward to move forward with design options for grade enrollments of pre-K to 4 and pre-K to 6.
Motion for enrollment options pre-K to 4, pre-K to 6.
Second.
Okay, open it up for any more discussion or questions, or?
So are we leaving the scope too large by having two options right now, or should we try and narrow it down to one option out of those two?
I think because we've got a pretty aggressive meeting schedule between now and December 10th, I think we're okay. I'll look at my team over here. I think we're okay in doing that. I don't want to be so premature that we're not giving full due diligence to having to look at those options at both sites.
I'll say that I think we need to look at both of those to figure out, to know what they mean on the site. But it would be interesting, maybe after this vote, to hear if anybody has strong opinions about them related, in comparison to each other.
And it's something we need before we got to the point of throwing one of those out completely, is an idea of what those dollar signs actually mean before we go to town meeting and say we want to get this thing done.
Have some numbers, there's a range that we're talking about
Yeah.
as opposed to already being in the highest range.
So I was confident in motioning to not include the 1st through 6 because looking down the line, pre-K and K is going to be so expensive to construct and or renovate that it doesn't do the town any good right now to throw them out of any option. that's gonna be the most costly later down the line. So that's why I would be confident, I'm confident to motion to not do the first through six, because I would be concerned about coming back to the town in a short amount of time to get the pre-K and K, especially the state looking at pre-K right now so heavily already, and starting to mandate that. I would be concerned not to already have them in the town's plan.
And leaving them in the most challenging building on the most challenging site.
Yes. I mean, the more we think about it, we're like, if you were left with pre-K and K and had to replace it, you'd have to find another plot of land, because it can't happen where it is. You know, there's no, I mean, unless you, I hate to say this, you literally put modular pre-K out on your field so you could rebuild a building over here, which is already kind of a tight site. I mean, it's a challenge going
My
in the
opinion,
future.
I think you guys should add a number where, for the pre-K to fourth, and then you just have, for the existing Howard, just the reduction in students.
Yeah.
So just so they know, you say you're going from 500 students to 250 or whatever, so like people understand what the actual,
What would happen
different,
there.
yeah, what the reduction actually is.
And I would also be open to, or want people to be open to both options, because pre-K to 4 is not a bad option.
I wouldn't
People
consider
are going heavily that pre-K to 6 is the end all and be all. I was at the beginning of this as well, but their feasibility study will end up flushing all of that out for us to make the informed decision.
All right, any other questions, discussion? If not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Thank you. James, I didn't forget about your suggestion, but I think I'd like to move forward and maybe come back to that toward the end
Okay.
of the meeting once we've taken care of the other business.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so we will go from enrollment to site options now. Last time we met, we showed you, I think I said there was 37 or 39 of these options that we're showing in red as town-owned property, but not ideal for this school building project. Recently, we identified another site that it's a private owner and potentially being purchased by the town, which is 124 Bryant Street. It's a 24-acre lot. But unfortunately, there are some wetlands on the site that doesn't look like it's going to be buildable or used for this project. We can see here, so 124 is actually not the corner. It's this lot here, so a majority of the site has this stream and wetlands in it, besides this small portion up here, which would not be ideal to get a school to fit. We're also in a close residential neighborhood on both sides. We have Bryant and South Street over here. Minimal, looks like the only access might be Bryant or maybe a small, if that's wide enough, down on South Street. Yeah, but it
So,
doesn't.
David, correct me if I'm wrong, so the proposal moving forward, it would just have a small right-of-way between two dwellings that exist there now. The dwelling that's on the property is not part of the proposed sale to the town.
That's correct.
So there'd be a small right-of-way that would take you out back to the full acreage. So we would have probably even more significant access, even if the property was developable for a school, we'd have more significant access issues than we do at Roselle.
Yeah, I mean, that's just my opinion, but I just think it would have a real adverse impact on the residents in that area.
Yeah. Okay. The other option we found was 0 Howard Street, which is again a private owner, potential town purchase. This is over, I think, this way, what is that?
Yeah, so the other.
East from here?
South of here.
Okay.
So the Historical Society building, so basically it's the farmland, and then a little bit is out back of it, and then next to it, the big open field that's there now.
Right, and it looks like it's a good-sized lot. It's almost 8 acres, but I think it's going to be just on the smaller side of what we would need for a school building project of, pre-K to 4 or pre-K to 6.
Yeah, so we've done the test fit, and then in that vein of the way we do the exercises, let's see if the biggest thing can fit, then we made it smaller from there, even the better. So this is, again, looking at that pre-K to 6 largest footprint that we're looking at, showing that there, you could potentially look at a access road off of Howard Street on the western side there.
The road is right here coming down, and this would be the access road to the school, but it's limited spot, like places
For sure.
for a security loop around the school or such a.
Mitch, you want to point out the council on aging right there? Site, up. Oh,
No, there you go.
Just so
Yeah.
you know where it is.
Yeah.
It's literally on the other side of 106.
And there's no frontage on West Center. It's all on Howard Street.
Yeah. So you really, yes, the building fits. It is for sure very tight on there, so you're not gonna have a ton of outdoor acreage for play areas. Parking might have to get talked about. Maybe there's some here, and maybe it's still happening at Howard. But this is at least to put in your brains, how big is that parcel? What could we fit on there? Yes, the building could fit. Is it the appropriate place for it? Is that gonna encroach on the neighborhood too much? Those are questions that could be discussed.
And again, another point to keep in mind with both these properties that are being proposed to be purchased by the town at the upcoming town meeting next month is that for us to consider these takes us completely out of
Right.
the schedule with MSBA. And so we would have to inform them of such and probably, we just can't call a timeout with them. We would probably be putting us back to square one.
Yeah, we would have some schedule impact there, the transfer of property potentially. So that being said, so we had the red options that we showed last time. We have those two, what we're calling them yellow options now with Bryan Street and Howard. And then we have these two green sites, which are the Howard school site and then the Roselle site. That being said, I'm pretty sure that these two yellows can fall into the red category. And we would be looking to vote here to remove all the red categories from our further development and focus on the two green sites, which are again Howard and Roselle.
So the motion I'd like to entertain is to eliminate for consideration for a new school building, all town-owned property with the exception of the existing sites at Roselle and Howard.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Or any opposed? So voted, thank you.
Thanks.
Right, yeah, all right. So then, we've talked a lot about enrollment, and I know previous meetings, we've looked at the sites and talked about what can we fit here for a footprint of a building. And so today we want to take a little bit of a step back and just better explain our thinking and logic on where we've put those footprints that you've seen in previous weeks. And what are those other site constraints that we've been discussing in further detail with our consultants now to kind of put this image in front of you so you can see what's there, because a little bit, what's going on in our brains. So for the Roselle site, you can see we do have a very decent swath of wetlands going on in this northwestern corner across the western side of the site. So that precludes building happening there. Doesn't preclude, we might have, if we were to start entertaining a road access back to Crescent Street, that could, there's ways we can traverse the wetlands. So it's not preventing landscape development, but building development would be out of the question on wetlands area. We're highlighting where your existing leach field is and the original leach field, and those are mentioned just so that you know what's there for existing constraints. We could do an early enablement package that might make a new septic area up here. If we were deeming that, this zone was the best thing for the building, this enablement package happens, septic happens up here, you tie the existing building into the new septic temporarily while you decommission this and then use that site. So there's flexibility there, especially with the size of the Roselle site. You'll also see we're proposing this neighborhood buffer here. That's up for discussion as well. We thought it would be just an initial thing to start putting on paper and say, hey, we should probably be leaving some breathing room behind the neighbors that are on that site. Any questions on Roselle?
So with the neighborhood buffer, there's still enough building space there?
Yes, so the footprints we've shown previously, we were kind of taking that buffer into account. So
Okay.
what
So
you're
it's
now
not
seeing
new.
is the dashed line overlays on what we were showing
I mean, the
previously.
idea is that with hopes, that the neighborhood can still be looking at woods in the back, right? The woods do not need to be thousands of feet deep to still be woods. It could be, so that's trying to gauge what that might be and gesturing that we're thinking about that. Did you have a question?
Yes, it should be pertinent to add that there's an access road on the bottom left corner of Roselle
Yeah.
out to Goldie Road that is maintained and gated.
Okay,
at
yeah.
this time.
Which there is no way that we're gonna look at doing any form of improving that as an access for the school for daily use, that's for sure. I mean, that just wouldn't be feasible. We would just not do that.
Even strengthening it for emergency access, the turning radius is just aren't gonna.
And then there's Howard. So, it's a lot more that I've shaded out here. So the gray shading is where we're looking at an existing building of sorts that, the library is obviously remaining, we're not touching that. Howard School, we would want it to stay in operation during whatever happens on this site, so that you're not having to deal with modulars happening somewhere. So that's grayed out to show that whatever we build, we want to keep Howard up and running while we're building it. Friendship Park as well has been, kind of discussed, and noting kind of the tight constraints between the library, between Howard School, trying to wedge something in there on something that is not necessarily something we want to rip out, making, touching Friendship Park a little bit less palatable, pickleball courts, and then septic tanks and the existing leach field and its reserve on the site. So similar to what I was just saying for Roselle, where you could do an enabling package, get something else up and running before you do that. Roselle, that's easier. We've got leg room on site to potentially make a septic somewhere, unplug, replug in, and be happy. Here, if you were doing that same scenario and saying, oh, I'm going to put my new septic here, and then I've still got to build a building, you've run out of room on site because there's no room for you to build that new septic, build the new building, and then demolish the school. Now, the site we were just looking at across the street of the other Howard that's a little bit tight, maybe that's a great location to put your new septic tank, because it's only, that site is, if you can see my red cursor on the wall, it's about right there in the scale of distance from the current Howard site. So in this scenario, if we were looking at building on Howard to help free up that space, you could potentially look at doing whatever you're going to do with your septic on that other new Howard site to free up space here.
And also we have wetlands. Don't forget.
Oh, yeah.
That's not a pool, we also have wetlands too.
Wetlands, and we also heard at the last meeting about the parking for the council on aging.
Anyway, so just, we're sharing all this as we're talking to our engineers, we're having these conversations, so that you're all on the same page as we are, as we're, continuing to look at the opportunities on these sites. I keep saying this, it's a bit of 10 pounds into a 5-pound bag right here, and that's, it's not unheard of. I've always liked to say I've had an entire middle school on 2 acres. Nothing's not possible, but we're going to just keep, looking at the different alternatives. I think you'll see when we come back in 2 weeks, we'll start talking more about, with the known constraints, what's possible.
Just on this
On
side
both,
alone,
on both sides.
your savings already because you don't have to clear any forest out, so you save the money on the clearings. And if you put your septic in the northeast corner of this site, up there, you have plenty of space because you can use recycling sand filters, there's way to reduce the footprints of the septic system, even for a commercial style building, which this is. I know it's, a little bit of a different thing, but up there, and then what you do is you kick the building down towards the existing leaching field.
Yeah.
I've already looked at all,
No, I think that's what we're talking about,
Yeah.
is the idea so that, you don't, here's what I would say. You don't want to build something just because it's the only square inch you
Yeah.
have, and then you're done, you're going, God, that doesn't work as well as it should have, right? So one of the things that we do in our planning is what we call enabling packages. And it's something you do first so that you can then do the thing you want to do. And so that's what Stephanie's talking about, and you're talking about. It's like, the septic and the leaching field and all where it is now might actually, not want to be there in the future, so how do you build?
Yeah, I like your idea of putting it across the street.
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, anyway, so all these
Yeah.
rocks we're turning over
And
to sea.
to your point, I think, and back to David's point too about, is it the pre-K to 4, is it the pre-K to 6? If you're building something kind of wedged and down here, which could definitely, you know, is buildable, we could do, that might make the most sense if it's that pre-K to 6 option, because you're demolishing Howard afterwards. If it's a pre-K to 4 size building and we're kind of putting it down here, it is gonna be admittedly a little bit smaller, so it might fit a little better. But you're still gonna be hugging pretty close to the existing Howard.
In my head, Howard is going away. That's-
Yeah, then agreed.
Because now you can develop that portion of the site and,
Yeah.
you know, better parking, better circulation, maybe a playing field, those kinds of things. So let's, when we're coming back with all that, again, you know, we don't want to get too far ahead being like, you know, we've got something solved, because we really don't, and it's more just sharing the information as we have it and trying to make it somewhat palatable of what's happening on these sites.
Is
So-
building on the Howard site really feasible by installing a new septic system? Are we even going to be able to do that, or are we going to require water treatment?
It's not going to be a septic system if we put everything there. It's going to be a treatment plant and a groundwater discharge permit,
Yeah, between
which
1,000.
can help a little bit as far as sizing things, because the field can be smaller because you're treating for it.
Yeah.
I actually, other than the fact it's gonna take 8 feet of fill, I like the idea on the other side of the street as well.
Right.
But, I mean, it's gonna take the same amount of fill there, it's gonna be the same way to get the separation of groundwater, it's gonna be pretty much, I guess it'll be the same after you add the treatment. You're not gonna get much smaller footprint because you're increasing the flow.
So now,
So-
Yeah, because
So you're gonna be taking an
70,000
equivalent
gallons a day.
amount up at that corner. If you're gonna use that site, I think it makes more sense to put it across the street.
We would look at all of those
Yeah.
things.
You can keep pumping, you save all those days.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions on the site constraints? All right, next discussion is just about preliminary cost data. So this Excel file, I know we used dollar signs earlier, but now we're using the blur method. So we have all different methods going on.
Just want anybody to gasp and fall into the floor.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not calling for any motions on this slide.
No, there's no motions yet. So there's 3 slides, and on the 3 slides are different options that we're looking at for each school. So this is the Roselle. There's 9 options. At Howard site, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 options. And then at Spring Street, for the Spring Street enrollment, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 options as well. So I think we have a total of 19 options that we have to study for the MSBA during the PDP. And what we just want to let everybody know is, for this phase, we're using MSBA historical square foot data, and we're plugging it into our Excel file to spit out roughly what these building costs are going to look like. So our construction costs, our soft costs, and what that we can do with that is obviously we'll get a number of the total project budget. We'll also get a total construction cost, and then we can also calculate the district potential share very early on, rough concept estimates. So what that will look like is this is just an example from another project, but we can spit out the different options that we're going to have and what the share or reimbursement rate would look like for the town. So this is what we're working to get to, and in the next couple of meetings, we'll actually get rough numbers and start showing you that data. This is just kind of what we're working on. Be prepared. We're going to get some numbers out here. They're going to be big numbers. This is a big size enrollment, big square footage project. So we're not talking, $40 million. We're talking well north of that. So just want to fill everybody in. We're working on this, and it might be the sticker shock meeting next time, but it'll be good to start that discussion.
When you're talking about using on the basis of the MSBA projection, you're going to qualify that for the extra space that we're already appear to be planning for. That if we have, 17 of those extra spaces between the classrooms, we're not, all of that's not going to be
At
fundable space.
at the moment, again, working with leadership, at the moment, the only thing that we believe that's not covered by MSBA is a booster box.
Out of all the other stuff, okay, no,
In
that's,
the space summary to have as much square footage as possible that should be built. Now, one of the topics that's been coming, and this is gonna come back to you guys, has been about gym spaces, and gym spaces, and gym spaces. that will be additional if it's beyond what MSBA is allowing for. And this group, representative of the community, will have to say, the community wants it so much, we will pay 100% of that cost, or no, we won't. And so that will all be in your court to decide where we are doing our best on the education side to make sure we're meeting our requirements and, staying in the day. So that includes those small group rooms, it includes everything we've been talking about so far. So,
I think one of the things to note is when we provide these options, it's not necessarily give you it's to give you a ballpark cost, but it's also to compare relative costs between the different options. So you're going to see, is this one double this one? Is this one 10% more, 20% more? In that way, it won't really matter MSBA reimbursement. We're not trying to tell you exactly what you're going to get. We're trying to tell you ballpark, what are these different projects relative to the other project costs.
Yeah, good cost comparison, right, between the different options. So there's no real data, so probably no questions about the cost. So we can roll into the website.
You'll have them next time. I want to go back to James' question. You want to ask that question again, James? Just,
Well,
I don't want to get into a lengthy discussion, but certainly if there are some quick hits that folks want to give you some feedback on that.
Yeah, is there any sort of high-level, strong feelings about the difference between the pre-K to 4 versus the pre-K to 6? You asked, can we just go to 1? So I have a feeling you might have a strong feeling, but I'm not putting you on the spot. But, anything we can hear is useful for us moving forward.
I think doing just the pre-K to 4, I know it takes one entire grade out of Howard School, but looking at what the projection components are down the road and thinking that each grade should have 7 classrooms, I don't think it really buys you that much space in one piece. We're still going to have specialists in cooks.
Right,
Down the road.
and we looked at, could we fit district offices in there? And really, it doesn't seem like when we look at initiatives, we could fit them in there to save the district some money due to the potential of
We won't be able to afford to take down the Spring Street School anyway, so you guys can just stay with it. Well, I mean, the only thing thinking them through is, and then it also gets into the site though, but the pre-K through 4 at Roselle means we buy time on a couple of fields that we don't have to replace. Which, you just brought up about that's out of the town's pocket. We already get beat up that town wants more fields, needs more fields.
Yeah,
So
not
that's
one
an
need.
extra cost now that doing things on the Howard site that interrupt those fields, that's what, $500,000 a field that we gotta, or more now probably, that we have to go and find the money for and a place to put. So, just off the top of my head, something like pre-K through 4 over at Roselle might not be ideal for Howard, but it is extra space for those 2 grades. If we don't move the offices in there, that something can be done for shorter money that gets them through for a while, and we look to a future MSBA funding money to replace that school. But I think we need to be careful about jumping to the most expensive option until we get something that comes back, because I think we'll hear about that when it comes time to try to sell the project, wherever we end up. I'm not saying that's not the way to go, but I think we need to make sure we stay focused on comparing them now.
until it's time to make a decision.
And that cost of replacing the field, I think, needs to be sort of considered when you're giving us our comparisons, because certain things we don't have to replace, or we do have to replace, and that's a town share cost.
I don't recall, if you build on a site and there is an existing school that will be demoed, is the demo a reimbursement rate because you're using the same site? So there's actually a lot of factors that are starting to make me think that pre-K to 4 is actually, from a construction and spend standpoint, and also to, this is true for you, or Lydia's point about the education and growing, it's starting to lean that way, but next week you guys can change my mind.
And remember, they're only going to allow 1, so if we eliminate 3 schools, you're only going to be able to take down 1 in the project.
Yeah.
Right, but that would, in my mind, it would keep the Howard.
Yeah.
I think it probably will require a little more of the range of costs to really evaluate the two different options.
And you'll see more of that next time.
Here, I just wanted to clarify something that Keitha said before. If we move fourth grade out of Howard, there's this perception that it will create space within the building for the existing classes to spread out or for the specialists to have classrooms. But when you look at the projected enrollments, the number of students who will be using that space by the time the new building is built and fourth grade comes out, we are right back where we are now. There, we will not have extra space. Our classrooms will be full, and we will not have room for specialists. So there is absolutely no positive impact on the Howard by doing that. I just wanted to clarify.
I think that's a diagram we have to bring back
Yeah.
at the next meeting. It's the existing plan with.
Just see what
fifth
can
and sixth
happen
grade
there.
in it.
Again, to convince us it does or doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
Everyone likes a picture, so we can definitely do that.
And I think it's accurate to say that the Howard classrooms are, on average, the smallest classrooms size.
Square footage.
Square footage.
Right, not student numbers.
Well, it's on par with Roselle. Roselle's like, Howard has both. Howard has both smaller than Roselle and larger than Roselle.
The larger were the former specialist classrooms.
Yeah, yeah, because there's like 6 900-foot ones, and then the rest are all more like 700, and then where Roselle's like 825.
All right, good. Thank you.
I was just curious, how, when you said that about the size of the classrooms in Howard, how does that compare to what MSBA says the classroom size should be now? Are they
A
significantly
new
smaller? Are they
classroom.
close?
MSBA
Yeah.
allows for, 900 to 950.
And how, roughly, how big are the ones at Howard?
At Howard, they do have some 900, but then they got, half of them are 900 and half of them are more in the 700s, so.
Okay, I'm gonna see if I can,
Yeah.
do this.
While you're doing the switch, I want to acknowledge that I think it was Don at the last meeting asked for his presentation in advance, and we did not fulfill that request, so our team will do a better.
2 weeks is a really short
Our
time.
team will do a better job to try to turn that around, so you at least have it the day of.
We have made some tweaks in the last hour and a half, and so I'll distribute it in the morning. Don't use the one I called final earlier.
It'll be the final.
It'll be a final.
All right, so just to give everybody a quick website update, we've been working with our internal marketing and website development team at PMA, and we came up with this website right here. So we've made a lot of good progress on it. Currently, I think you guys are using a Google site, just kind of housing documents and giving meeting dates and just kind of a landing page for the project. This will be, it's a little more in depth than that. We have different folder structure up top. So we have a home, which is just this home page, which has each of the projects. Keep in mind, this is a draft, so we're not live, and we still have to update some photos and some text and description, but we wanted to put this in front of you to see the progress we've been making. So we'll have upcoming meetings on the home page. You'll be able to subscribe to project updates, so anytime we update any meeting minutes, agendas, or presentations, you can get an email kicked over to you, so then you can know something new has been updated. So on the About, we click in here. Let's see.
And again, just to clarify, the Google page that Mitch references is for us, but this is intended to be a public-facing site.
This will be a public-facing outreach site where you can see we even have updates and FAQs. So we'll develop some FAQs that will be project-specific. So if anybody is curious about what's going on with the project, what phase it in, how much it's going to cost, how big is the project, we'll get some random standard FAQs developed and put them up here. This is just a little bit of about page. Again, we have a lot of stock photos for now. We do have information on the existing facilities. This is just a good write-up on each of the schools. FAQs is just blank for the moment. And then project, like I said, project updates is a lot of materials that we'll have. So yeah, it's a work in progress. The contact us. I think at some point we'll even get social media linked to this. So we have a Facebook page. We can link to the Facebook page. Or even in some cases, some of our projects we use Instagram. Do we use Instagram on So we're getting fancy with all the social media. So they'll all be linked in together and it'll be good outreach for the project.
Do you have a target when you can put this live?
So we are, it should be honestly live by the end of the month. Don't tell anybody, but I think if you go on now, you can probably find it. But we don't want to start advertising it out there, right? So we want to get it 100% and then get rid of some of the stock images and get them more specific to the project. And then we can let everybody know and we can spread the word. And you guys could probably link it even on the town website too. Let's see if I can make this switch happen. Here. All right, let's take care of the website. So schedule, we're pretty much all at the same. We're 2 weeks ahead from the last time we met. So we're still under module 3 here, targeting December 2024 for our PDP section. We already talked about the school building committee dates, but I just wanted to show them again. So we have today 10/22, 11/12, 11/26, and then 12/10. That's it. Any questions?
Yeah. As our OPM asking you,
Yep.
how is HMFH doing on the schedule right now?
They're good. They're crushing it. It's so, as you can tell, we've asked a lot of the committee so far, where we've had maybe 3 votes already, and we've met, where we on our 2nd month. So we probably have 4 meetings with the HMFH so far, 3 or 4 meetings, and they're doing a good job. They're under the pressure. We're all under the pressure because December is only a month and a half away right now, maybe less than. So we're all keeping on pace.
4 meetings, including the one that we came to the day we learned
day that I
about
got
that.
it. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
And then Mark and I are participating with a bi-weekly, in between our meetings here, we're participating in a meeting with the team on an update between our meetings.
Yeah, so there's the bi-weekly meeting that they have. There's also a lot of educational visioning and programming meetings that we've had. Yeah, I think some people over this corner, a couple over here might be sick of everybody by now too, but it's been a good progress, and HMFH is doing good.
All right, any questions, comments, concerns? All right, if not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. If you haven't signed in the sign-in sheet, that helps Debbie, so make sure you do that before you leave. Leave your name tags for Mark. Motion to adjourn?
I make motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Thank you again, appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.